minutes early tonight, but that's okay. All right, in the news update, for September, can you believe it, the seventh day already, 2018, Friday night, uh, YouTube Live version of the news. It's where we first started out at. Now we're on a bunch of other places, including on Love FM. We are supported by you. We get donations by you. We're non-profited, which means you send us donations. You can send us a donation if you choose to by PM me up on Facebook, or you can leave a comment down below, and I can write back to you to give you information, and then I can give you the address where to send the stuff if you're really a legit person, because we really do need the funds at this time. Uh, Lots to talk about tonight. Um, uh, Possible soldiers being in our country. Uh, I guess the first headline would be possible soldiers. I should say possible foreign soldiers could be in our country tonight, and it's kind of hard to really, when you think about it, it's kind of hard to think about that too much, but it is a real thing. It is a concern, and it should be on your hearts as it is on ours. Um, uh, you know, because it is a real problem, and I think a lot of us deep down probably know this, and we need to be concerned about it uh, because it'll affect you. You can sit there and you can ignore it, and you can make excuses about it all day long till the cows come home. But it's just like any sin or any problem that goes on in the world. If you can ignore it, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and blossoms. It fermentates. It gets worse over time. And it's what we see happening is with our news media. And I think it's really sad to see at the same time that we all are on this planet to learn and to grow and to do things, but are we using our talents for its greatest potentials? I mean, are we being controlled by organizations? Are we controlled by our parents? Are we being controlled by somebody else or something else that's taking away or robbing you from your greatest potential? Is frequency modulation uh, ruining your potential too by blocking the receptors in your brain, as recent studies have revealed to that, according to the white papers that have been published by scientific organizations and other entities over the years. Um, are there people in your life that are trying to get you to do something that you don't want to do because they want you to live out their dreams, or they want you to be in control? I mean, they want to have control of your destiny instead of you have control of your destiny. I've always said, like my mother, when she raised me, she said, Michael, I'm going to teach you the things that you need to know, but I want you to be able to make your own decisions and make your own way in this world. And I love you, son, and I know you're going to do fine because you're a lot like your father. You're self-starter, you're self-motivated, and you know how to get the job done if you really want to do it. Set your mind to it. And that's what I've been doing all this time. And, uh, you know, it's a lot that's going on. I mean, we got Chinese soldiers that are in our country sneaking in with all the immigrants, or people don't like you to use the word, or foreign uh, foreigners that are coming in here. Uh, and we believe that a lot of the crime syndicates, most of the most wanted men, top wanted men, terrorists and things, are in Chicago. Yeah, of all places in America, they're in Chicago. And just goes to show you that you can't go. Where did I go? Just kidding. Um, but I'm getting across route. But it just goes to show that you cannot um, really have a peaceful discussion anymore without people hating you or saying all kinds of bad things about you that aren't true, or lying about things, or manufacturing things, because it's like people either A, have too much time on their hands, or either B, they just plain stupid or ignorant. I'll just tell you the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, because there are a lot of things that are going on out in the world that are just plain stupid right now, with everybody arguing over a bunch of stupid stuff. It really doesn't matter to anything. But remember, Underground World News will be coming on. I think I looked. I think it's between 8 or 9 o'clock tonight from Dabu Seven's channel. So just to listen to that, because he talks about some good stuff too. There'll be a possible alert that's coming out for September. That's coming out on the 20th of September is what I remember. That's going to be released that he's going to be talking about, I think, tonight in his podcast. I'm going to guess it may have something to do with the power outages or the power out drill scenarios that they're going to be running September through November in this country. Now, these, from what I understand, are supposed to be simulations. In that meaning that these simulations are just going to be really computer simulations. They're not supposed to be uh, taking down power grids or put large areas. But then other people feel it could be really a combination of simulation, but really they're going to really knock out the power in a lot of areas in this country to see how well they can respond and turn the power back on. And then other people have this thing thinking it's some kind of plot that they're going to destroy this country by turning the power off to create some type of civil war. And all these theories are plausible and possible and foreseeable, but I hope none of them happen. I hope these are just simulations and nothing more, drills. But we know in the past when military and other government groups have gotten together to do things, they have always, the drills sometimes have gone live, which means people really did die in the drills, like in the Boston bombing. And what happened in Ferguson, people were hurt and some people were killed. But like I said, that was supposed to be a drill, which means no one's supposed to be hurt. So we just have to see what happens. We've been seeing a lot of military activity going across the midsections of our country. Don't know what that's about. Yellowstone, meanwhile, had an earthquake of 4.5 yesterday and had a few rumbles today. But it's like every time they have an earthquake, the numbers are there, but then somebody goes back and rolls back the numbers or lowers them a little bit so it doesn't alarm people. They're worried about everybody getting alarmed that live over and around near Yellowstone. Well, I tell you what, there's a lot more activity going on over there. I don't care if it's a little bit and they want to convince you and tell you it's still okay. I would find another place to live. It's preferably not in that zone if that thing decides to go off, because that's going to take out about half the United States and probably wipe out more than half the population here if it really goes off the way they're talking. And I don't want to scare you, but I've seen some scary numbers on that. And they're by high military sources and other government sources. And I'll tell you what, it make you realize where you need to move, you know. And there really ain't no place where you can really go to be totally safe. Because even in the areas where it won't be so much affected, if Yellowstone were to go boom, go off. But if it were to do that, I think we'd all be affected some way, form, or fashion. And that's what we have to realize here. That this thing, the time, the guises of the time, of the guises have changed at Yellowstone Park. A lot of creatures have fled the park. There's creatures there, but they're creatures, not preachers, but creatures fleeing from there all the time. So that's not a good sign. And there's a lot more shaking and a quaking going on at Yellowstone. It's danger zone, And then we hear about airplanes, two incidences within the last 2 weeks where they had horrible smells on the airplane where they had to force the planes to land because people complained of sore throats and fevers and other things. Of course, they won't say that. I don't think it was a virus. I think if you smell sewage, I think that could make anybody sick. Quite, quite to say the least. I think it would make anyone sick, to say the least, because noxious fumes. If you breathe them in enough, they're going to make you sick, and lightheaded, and possibly make you faint. If it's strong enough, and that could give you a sore throat. That could give you watery eyes, and it could make you feel nauseous by breathing in, human waste. And that's what happened there on the planes, because that's what they discovered. There was no biological agent that was released in the air vents or anything. No, just somebody didn't put the hydraulic toilets on there right when they sealed it. That's why the smell was coming up in the cabin on both of these incidences. Weird thing is both of these planes were coming back from Europe. One that happened 2 weeks ago and the one that just happened yesterday. Yesterday, and then there's this um, horrible article that was written about Trump. I don't know if you heard about it, but this horrible article that went out from the New York Times, or no, it's the Post, New York Post. Sorry, I want to use the wrong paper, but they definitely said a bunch of lies about Trump and slandered him like they always do, fatten him up to make him look all bad, everything, because that's just what they want to do, because that's part of their agenda to try to take him down any way they can, by using whatever means quoted, either way or the one way or the other. We're going to get our way. And that's kind of what they said in the article towards the end. There's a direct threat towards Trump and his family. And if I was Trump, I would take that very serious. I wouldn't go dig a hole and fall in it, though. And of course, Trump's not doing that either. But he's taking an active stand and firing back at those people, the fake news media, like New York Times and New York Post and CNN and MSN, and just to name a few. There's a lot of them out here to tell a bunch of lies every day about Trump. And as a matter of fact, they're behind all this stuff to divide America up, and we got all this stuff being taught to our kids at school that shouldn't be taught because it's inappropriate. And how we have co-ed bathrooms instead of having we have unit. What I mean, we have co-ed bathrooms instead of girl and boy bathrooms where they're separate, they're together, and that should make you outraged. Meanwhile, we hear that Pro Green and Liberty might actually join forces and form two churches at the same location. They're talking about this. Has not yet happened in stone, but it is a possibility because they are really talking about maybe coming together, having two different churches there, and possibly changing their names. So they'll keep you up to date on that developing story in Mechanicsville, Virginia. I think it's a good thing because a lot of churches are rebranding, like I said in last night's podcast a little bit. They are changing their names because it helps their image, and to make it more modern. And I don't see anything wrong with it as long as it is for God's glory. And those churches are good churches. Both Paul Green and Liberty Church of Christ are both good Christian dynamite churches. Like I said, if you got bad people in any of them, it's going to hurt the growth. It's going to hurt the ministry, and definitely it's going to hurt what happens there at these locations, because it's going to hinder what's going on. I mean, just like me taking cancer and putting it in everybody's food. I'm not going to really do that. I'm just using it as an example. Or like when they put chemicals in the water that you don't know about, and what it's doing to the people with the fluoride by dumbing them down. It's the same thing what you're doing in church. If you got these dynamite people and you got a few in there that are spreading rumors and gossiping and trying to call splits every time you turn around 10 ways from Sunday, it's going to destroy the church like it's destroying our country if we allow this stuff to continue with all the lying and all the dividing going on, and all the demonization that's going on. So many levels of how corporations set the standard of what our kids learn in school, and when yet there should be us parents actually telling the school board what to teach our kids, not the corporations, but that's what they've been doing. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. It's just like how they're teaching all these things to our kids that are inappropriate about how to put a condom on another boy's, you know, appendages or a girl's appendages. I mean, that stuff shouldn't even be taught in school in the fourth grade. Saying it's okay to have sex with anybody, doesn't matter how old they are, as long as it feels right, it's all right. That's also what it says in their literature. It's actually in one of their books. We had a video. I want you to look at that last week. But this is sold on all the kids, exploitation of children in America. But this is not just in America, however. It's a global initiative. It's a way to get all children how to split the family up. And one of the most valuable assets of a family assets is the children. And that's why they want to try to pull the children away, want to divide everybody there in the home. And so that's something that should be of concern to you because I know it is to me. And as a parent and as a preacher myself, I stuff bothers me greatly. I never thought, truthfully, I never thought that same-sex marriage would become um, a reality ever because people would have more common sense to know that they would not vote something like this in. It's just like we see all this stuff going on with how girls want to be boys, even though, and boys want to be girls or be whatever they want to be. This transgender crazy phobia that's going on. And it's just absurd, people. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, really, there are true transgenders, like I said, but it only affects about 2% of America population because they're born with two sets of genitals. And so that's when the parents have to decide with their doctor what sex they want them to be. They have the surgery, and they can be a girl or a boy at the time. But transgenders, the way they use it now is that they can be a boy one day, and they can be a girl another day. And that's not what transgenders really are. Uh, a person can look more like a girl, yet they're still a guy. And no, it wasn't surgery. No, when there's sex alterations. It's just that sometimes people can be born that way because of hormones, because they have more women chromosomes than they have male chromosomes. But that had nothing to do with a surgery or some experiment that went bad when they were born, or at the egg level. No, the embryo level stages. It had nothing to do with that. It wasn't that at all, really. It was just, you know, uh, how they came out. It's like you have some women that look more like guys, and they had no sex change, but they're still a woman. As you can see in their hips and all, they're still a woman. It's like you can see where a man can look like a woman in their face, and they didn't have no sex changes, but they look that way, but they're still a man because their shape and all is the same. Their bone structure is the same as a man. So, but then some of these people want to go around and perform surgery, take bull hormones to increase their boobs, wear body overlays to make their waist look bigger if they're a male or a female, so they look more like a female, and do all kinds of crazy things. Take bull horns for their boobs to grow them out to be a girl, even though they may be a guy. Because and the bad thing is when you do all this stuff to your body, you can't take that back, okay? Because you can't reverse what you did. It's like open up Pandora's box, and all you did is you created a monster, and that monster is something you're not gonna be able to put back because you're not gonna be able to shrink your tits down when you shot them up with bull hormones, you know, or if you're taking like all kinds of other things to make you feminine, doing things to make your voice higher, doing things with your testicles that can make your voice get higher. You're just highly uncomfortable. I don't know how anyone would want to be a drag queen or even be someone that wants to be a female, and yet they're a male, and they put their testicles, somehow they put their private, so sick, up in their rear end, and they squeeze it up in there somehow. It's not surgical, but it's very painful. And I don't know why anyone would want to do something that crazy and that maddening. To me, when yet you can just be happy with the genitalia that God gave you because He gave it to you from birth, and you shouldn't want to change or alter what He gave you. I may not like it, but that's how they justify it. Well, I'm a transgender, so that means I can go in there and watch a girl go pee pee, or I'm a girl and I can go in there and watch a guy go pee pee in the next stall over beside me, because that's how they get around it by having these co-ed rooms, or what I call neutral rooms, which is that because they're for every gender, if you're a boy, girl, or whatever else you are in between. Um, so they're called neutral rooms. Um, a co-ed are like boy and girls where they're separate. These neutral rooms is what they do, gender neutral. That's for everybody. And they're springing up everywhere all down here in North Carolina, man. Look like flowers in the field, which I wish I could just burn them all down, but I don't want to go to jail. But that's how I feel about it because it makes me so angry. How they're putting our kids in with, where the girls and boys use the same bathroom together. I think it's very disturbing to hear about this. Uh, and then you hear about all this stuff they talk about possibly assassinating President Trump and where they're going to try to, they're threatening his family, with all kinds of things. And they're making up all kinds of lies. The Russian narrative didn't work. Um, of course, they still keep trying to use that, but it's not working because, people know who are awake because they're waking up, know the real truth what happened there. Just like they know about 9/11, September 2001, or two, yeah, 9/11, what happened there on September 2001. They know what happened there. It was an inside job. Just like the fireman said, there were like three bangs when they were going up, down, up the stairs, or coming upstairs from the basement, and the whole thing collapsed all around them. And they heard all these explosions, a series of them. And that's before even the plane narrative, before the plane even hit the towers. These were happening. There were two firemen talking about that. So we know that this was an engineered inside job to take away our freedom because the globalists want to have control on America. They want to have the new world order, and they want to roll this thing out worldwide. And they're getting in place to do that here soon, according to their timetable. Sooner than never. Sooner is better to them, but they would like to have it rolled out by 2030, 2020, 2020, well, 2030, and rolling out these national IDs. We talked about that a little bit. These national IDs are different, like from any other IDs that you carry around. I don't even have my wallet on me, but the ID you have in your wallet don't have a chip in it, but the new national ID will. And it's kind of like a soft kind of mark of the beast kind of rollout because it will have a chip in there and contain information about you on it. It will have more information on you than just what's on that ID itself. And then the next step is to make it digital totally and put it underneath your skin, kind of like in the same manner, but our chips will be way more advanced and more sophisticated because they hold a lot more information. They can just scan you, or merchants can scan you and take payments from you electronically as you walk through the door or leave a building without you having to go to the register. They can ring you up, scan you, bill you for it as you leave the store with your items in your hand without even going through the line. That's the future of retail. That's the future of commerce. I don't like it. It's very insecure. It sounds neat, sounds cool. A lot of people say that's cool. But every time you get more conveniences, you always have more hacks. You always have more vulnerabilities, and you always have security risk. And with this stuff, that's the future, what they're rolling out to make it so automated. I mean, most of our services here in the country are automated, right down to our electricity, our water, our stoplights, traffic lights. Everything is computerized heavily. And by the time they roll all this stuff out, it'll totally be all AI. And that's, some AI is online now, but when it really goes online here by 2030, it's going to be really, really a lot more things going on. So I guess it'll keep me a lot more busier, I guess. But at the same time, anybody's in computers are going to be super busy. Uh, that's why I tell people to read up more on what they know in IT because they're going to want you to work at these big government installations that have mainframes or several mainframes in them that are networked and merged together to do multiple AI systems because it's coming, cloud computing, all these things that you've heard about is coming true. It's going to come to pass. And that's why I tell you all IT people need to learn about government multi-wafer computing. They need to know about multi-cycle computing, know about AI, and know how to work with integrate with their systems to be able to make on-spot, on-site repairs in real time while they're still running where they won't shut the system totally down. Like the nationwide or worldwide surveillance grid that are rolling out all across the world. And the weird thing is a lot of these third world countries have systems that are just like ours going in. And it's a surveillance levels just like ours going in. but yet they can't even afford to feed their populace. Yet they're willing to have all the state of the art surveillance thing, grids. And to me, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, Turkey's in a whole lot of trouble right now. And they're in a whole lot of trouble. There's a preacher, a Baptist preacher, that's been locked up since 2016, all because of his faith. And we're not blaming the country, but we just want to ask that they would free this man for preaching the name of the Lord. And, he's been locked up and put in jail all because of what he believes. And that's what we're talking about, censorship. We've warned you about this. It is really that bad now. And we're asking that this pastor be set free in Turkey and be able to return back to the States safe and unharmed, and be able to return back to his family so he can continue doing his work elsewhere where God leads him to go, or to go back there if he chooses to. I mean, me, I would probably go back there if it was meant to go back there because I started something. I would usually like to finish it. I wouldn't care about the risk because really it's the souls that really outweigh everything else. And I think that's what we should look at. And when it comes to evangelism, sometimes going back to a place like Jesus did. He knew he was warned to stay away from Jerusalem, but he went back again and again and again till it was time where he was seized and brought into, where he was brought under arrest because of his time was time to be crucified. And all that stuff was coming together as it was prophesied in the Old Testament, as it was prophesied many times in the New before it happened, before it came to pass. And that's why Jesus had to return back there so he could finish what he started and go back from where he once came. He came from heaven, he had to go back to die, to be put in the ground in a tomb for 3 days, to be resurrected, only to resurrect and still be here for 3 days. 3 years. And then he was resurrected back, like we see in Acts chapter 2. That, he was resurrected after the day of Pentecost. I think it's chapter 4. And he was resurrected, enveloped on a cloud from whence he came. So that's what he had to do to fulfill that prophecy. That's exactly what Jesus Christ did, our Lord, our Savior. And that's why we're asking officials of the government over there in Turkey to let this man, this pastor, go. There also was a pastor, a Church of Christ minister, that took his life in California yesterday. And it was the cause of death was suicide. We don't have any specifics or particulars at this time, but we do know that a man that was noted, minister in the Church of Christ, took his life yesterday in California. Also, want to tell you that the governor and his wife were found dead here in North Carolina yesterday, very mysteriously, late breaking. But he was found dead. Both him and his wife were found dead in their home in Rollin. Roland, is it Rollin or Roland? I guess Rollin, North Carolina. And that was yesterday. They were having a press conference about that today. So we'll have to see what goes on with that. But folks, this stuff is getting serious. I mean, people coming up dead with strange causes without no details and not releasing any information. Normally they would say general information. And the weird thing that's weird about this case, and I agree with DeSilvis totally, is that they already have a suspect in custody, even though they haven't even released the information yet. That's highly a suspect and highly unusual, because usually you get the information together, and then once you get the information, then you make the arrest. Usually that's how it goes, but they already have the suspect in custody, and they have not yet released any of this information out to the rest of us, which is highly unusual. Smells like a false flag. Yeah, it smells like a false flag. It really does, and it's really weird. But yet they have this information. They already got the guy or people in custody. A fire out in California burns over 1,500 acres in one night. This comes from Paul Begley. That's unusual, and there's more that burned today. This fire has been a graphic fire, but they say this fire was set by an arsonist who set this fire, and I don't know if they have these people in custody or this cat in custody or not. But this fire, they believe, was caused by an arsonist who actually set the fire, and that's why the fire grew to the level. It wasn't a natural fire. The fires they have out in California, a lot of them are natural. However, where this fire was definitely set by an arsonist, I guess they got video intel to show that. So they got drones and things, satellites that can see what you hold in your hand in the newspaper just as you walk down the street in space. So if they got a picture on you, your butt is cooked, buddy. It'll be a matter of time before they round you up, throw you in jail. Um, but like I say, I hope you thought you had fun, but you're not gonna get away with it. You got all this surveillance stuff up now, so it's kind of hard to pull something off without being discovered now with all these things flying through the space and satellites and things where they can see you on the ground, like if they were flying overhead. And how they have drones that fly around now, they're flying around all too, surveillance and high up in the atmosphere. They can take a picture of you as if they were right beside you. So, you know, but these are the things that are going on. But, a lot of suicide is going on. And it's sad, but it is soberly the truth. I mean, that's why we need to have this talk with our churches so we can educate people about this stuff. And you think that preachers automatically, my cousin-in-law Bobby Wallace said, he made a good point. You would think that you know that preachers and ministers, since they're the guides of example and direction of the flock, that they would have it all together. It goes to show you they're just as faulty as any of the rest of you, and you just don't know what makes people be pushed to the point to where they would commit suicide, why they would overdose on drugs, why they'd be having sex with their secretary or messing around with underage kids, or you just don't know why. You just to name anything, well, why they would do any of this stuff. But, all this stuff is happening even with preachers too, because they are just as faulty and they're just as fallen as everybody else. And yet we put so much cloud on a preacher and so much responsibility on a preacher because normally, if they're a good man, they're going to do the right thing because they know better. And they are supposed to be the one to go to. That's supposed to be there to help the rest of the flock so that they don't, so that they don't fall. And they're supposed to be the witness and they shine light to their flock. But sometimes there are things going on within pastor or preacher's lives that are not appropriate that are going on, that have been under the radar. They just gotten so bad that it's just gotten out of control. Sometimes people kill themselves because of finances. Maybe they can't pay their bills and they have so many debts and they've made so many risks. So they hedge their bets so they feel like the only way to escape is to kill themselves. Maybe it was a drug reason. We don't know. But there's an investigation going on with a preacher out in California. A well-known preacher of the Church of Christ killed himself last night. He's left behind some kids. And we need to educate people about this stuff. We need to be more like a conduit to be able to share this stuff. And prayerfully, I hope that there'll be people to be able to do a better job to do that, to spot signs of the preachers and eldership and teachers in the church before it gets to the point to where they have to kill themselves, so they can not do that. So they don't have to think that that's the way to escape. Sometimes people kill themselves because I'm not saying this is because this is the case with this pastor here. I don't know why he killed himself, truthfully. But sometimes people kill themselves because they don't feel like they're accepted or don't feel like they're good enough, or maybe because they're homosexual, or because they have a secret sin in their life. Maybe they were molesting children for many years, and now that it's all going to come out, they may have killed themselves because of that reason. You know, and that's some reasons why people kill themselves. Uh, is just like some people shoot up drugs or shoot up sterilizers, tranquilizers, and they overdose, and they do that because they feel like their life is coming apart, and they feel like the only way to get out of here is suicide, and it's really not the answer. It's not the godly way to do it. But most people that you see that really commit suicide aren't really in their ideal frame of mentally, in their mind. So of course, when they commit suicide, you're not going to meet somebody that's going to be sober, stable kind of man or woman or child or teenager, because they're not. And that's why suicide happens most of the time. I've never known any man that I've seen many people at crisis centers and in the mission where I used to go to visit people. I never knew any man or woman that come in there that knew what they were doing. They tried to take their life or cut their wrists. The only reason what saved them was the grace of God. It doesn't matter how they cut it or how they didn't cut it or what they did. I know a lot of people took a lot of poisonous drugs that would have killed them 10 times over, but God had a reason to save them. That's why they're still here today because of that reason. It's just like we don't know what God's doing, why some people die and why some people don't die. Why, other things is, it's just like some people will try to kill themselves because of relationships. They ain't working out. They have an addiction, so they feel really bad, and now they're really depressed. Now they lost what they had, so they want to go and try to kill themselves because they think that that's going to draw attention to them or make that person feel guilty. So maybe they don't feel sorry and come back to that person. But most of the time, when people realize what you're doing and you're doing it for attention, that's not how to get them back. All that does is push them more and more further away because all you're doing is just trying to draw attention to yourself. And people don't like a man or a woman who tries to be a coward by killing themselves because that's a cowardly act. It may not be a sane act, but it is a cowardly act to escape responsibility and reality. Women want, and even men want, if it's a woman doing this, they want somebody that's stable, that has a highly mental attitude, someone that follows through with things when they start. Like they say they're going to go to counseling, and they finish what they start. If they're going to be working with AVAC or air conditioner, or they got to get some kind of license or certification, they study, they go take the test, they pass it. This is what women want. This is what men want. Somebody that says when they do something, they do it and they finish what they start. You know, a lot of people that commit suicide, a lot of times don't always follow through with things. They like to start things, but they never finish it because their mind's constantly doing this, going a bunch of different directions because they're worried about everything. They're trying to control things they can't control because it wasn't their business or really not their area to control in the first place. Uh, but really, what they need to do is work on fixing themselves instead of trying to fix others, or trying to worry about or seek after the acceptance of others. And a lot of times people feel so isolated and alone because of social media engagements. These applications out here, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. A lot of the kids today feel like they're instant stars and instant celebrities because they're always on video. They're always taking selfies. And they get this illusion because they get all these friends and all these likes, and they think, well, these are real people that like what they're doing. And they got all this branding going. And it's like an instant media satisfaction gratification thing. But see, a lot of times the real truth is there are far few people get that big or get that popular. But some people do. But boy, when they realize when they try so hard that they can't always do what their friends doing, then that eats them up inside to the point where it can cause them to commit suicide because they feel like they're hollow and very alone and isolated. Because really, social media, that's really what it is. It's a hollow, fake existence. Because a lot of people, I'll just tell you the truth. I work with kids. I know what kids speak. I know their language. I understand them. I care about kids very much. And I know and I understand their heart. And you have to understand kids in order to work with them. As a minister, as a teacher like myself, and as a youth minister, and as a person that works with them in period, or teacher even. Um, and kids, they don't always tell you what they feel or how they feel, but a lot of times they're screaming on the inside. They're mad because they don't understand a lot of things and they're still trying to act like a grown up. But at the same time, they're still scared little kids inside, even though they're a teenager. And they're not really sure about a lot of things because they're still learning. And it's okay to learn things, and it's still okay to be scared of things. And it's still okay to not be sure of things. But you got to realize that's part of the normal way you grow up and how you learn and how you mature. You're not born to this world to know everything, John, to know everything, Beth Ann, Jeremy, Stephen. But you will learn it as you go along. And make real friends. You can have social media, but you all guys need to get real friends who you can really talk to, like you talk to me when I see you. But you need to talk to other people too that are around, not just on your social media platforms. but talk to people that are physically real, not somebody who you follow or like on these social media things. Because how do you know those people? How well do you know those people? And secondly, how do you know if they're not a robot? You know, and it's like all this artificial stuff, and that stuff can really work on teenagers and kids over time to where it pulls them down and makes them very depressed to where they feel so disconnected and disattached where they just finally want to give up their life because they feel like all the stuff they're doing is not amounting to anything because they're not getting the likes that they want. And some kids will take their life based on this reason, which is so sad, so just so uneventable that they would do that. And yet they should realize that there's more to life by having real, real friendships. Like I said, like when we talked about the story in devotion a while back, how Saul became Paul and how he worked with the sons of thunder, Peter, James, and John, and how they all worked together to disciple men and women and children to Christ. Just in the same way that we learn from them today, as we would grow and mature as Christian believers in the Church of Christ, to share and impart those same messages that they shared to their readers or their audiences many centuries ago, 6 centuries ago, um, over 6,000 years ago, exact. Um, and you have to wonder, you know, that's we all need real physical relationships, friendships. Uh, then you got teachers in school going back to that thing about what they're teaching in school. It's inappropriate. Teaching it's okay to have oral sex with your people because you won't get pregnant. It's okay to do that. That's what they're teaching in these books to your teenage sons and daughters. And it's not okay because there's diseases down there in that area. And if you don't know the person, you're down there, you put your mouth down there in that area where it shouldn't go. And, you could be getting some kind of disease. And that's why it's good to get to know the person who you're with really good before you do something like that. I mean, you can do stuff like that with people when you know them. I mean, really well, not just where you just feel good with them, but I mean, really get to know them for a long time. I mean, like when you're married to them, you should only be doing that kind of stuff when you get married. Because that way, you don't have to worry about any kind of diseases. And if you wait, like I've always said, wait, you will find that the waiting was worth it because you'll be disease free. And the person who you get with when you wait will also be that way. And they'll be honest. The secret to a good long relationship with a person, a man or a woman, it is first of all is how honest they are to you. How truthful they've been to you on a daily basis. When they tell you something, do they tell you everything or are they holding things back? And I'm not talking about the things they did in the past before they met you. I'm talking about the things when they're with you, like why they're late, or why do they seem reserved or not always listening to you. And when people really love you, they're attentive and they listen to everything you say. When people don't love you, then that's why they hold back because they're doing something else, or they're with something, or their mind's somewhere else because they're with someone else. They're not being truthful with you, and they just like to play games. And people, life's too short for games. You want to play games? I always tell all these women out here, you want to play games, you need to move on. I want a real lady who loves me for who I am, for my goofiness, for my seriousness, for my ministry, and for the person who I am because I love to help people and work with people. And I know that lady's out there. She knows who she is, and she's a sweetheart too. I know she's a very, very sweetheart, more sweeter than anything I've ever known. But the thing is, that's the kind of lady you want, or the guy you want that's been there. It's always someone that's been telling you the truth. It's always been fair to you, and always has taken up for you. Not talking to other ladies on the side when you're not around, but someone who's always talking about you even when you're not around. Someone who's always looking out and opening the door for you. When someone's always got something good to say about you, and they say it truthfully because they really truly love you. That's how you know that guy or girl is the right one to be with for the right time because you have a lot in common with each other. even though you might have, several years between you. The age don't really matter when you're at the right appropriate age, like 18 or older, of age. Uh, and it doesn't matter what people think. It's because really love is what you make of it, because that's what's between you and ultimately God. And I say that from the bottom of my heart right here, folks, because it's true. Love is truly what you make of it. And if you want something good out of something, you can have it with someone that's 2 years apart, 5 years apart, 10, 20, 30 years, 4 years apart. Yeah, they might be old enough to be your grandpa or your dad. They be your parent themselves, but that's not why you're with them. You're with them because they love you, and they're not going to be your parent, especially if you're true to them and they've been true to you. And that's really what it's all about. It's not about what everybody else thinks, even though a lot of people will put their 2 cents in there, even though it's not always warranted. But they will do that because that's what they do. Anyway, I mean, it's always good to look at it, but you have to go by truthfully what your heart is telling you, not by the whims of what other people think, because they don't know, because they don't know you, and they don't know the person who you're with, and so they really don't have no right to say anything. They only know what you have said to them about the person, but they don't know all the story. So that's just something to think about. Anyway, this is in the news update. I love y'all. We've gone on for about almost 46 minutes. Nobody's watching. Please share this video. Please subscribe down below. And please donate and send tithes to us, because we surely do need it. Thanks a lot, everyone. God bless you all. And I love everyone. And keep on keeping on, you know, as I always say. And good Friday night to everyone. And don't give up the courage. Always remain faithful and steadfast. Take care. God bless. See you later. It's Michael Sills from New Order Church of Christ and DeSilvis Media Services. Take care.